Hello and welcome to day 147 of 365 days towards racial change. My name is Tom Lenz Nyback. We're here talking about black issues as it relates a lot. We go into history, a lot. We see what the dynamics is. Maybe we'll do some current events once in a while. We're all over the place here. Two big thoughts emerge as I go through this project, this year-long project. Is that first thought is for the mind of Americans, black and white. Do blacks still perpetuate a slavery mentality attitude in life? We have a lot of liberties and freedoms, and we come and go, but are we thinking? Are we doing some critical thought? Do we understand? Are we striving? Are we continuing to learn? Or do we trust that this American system dominated by whites is the end all and be all, and we can just trust that the altruism and benevolence displayed, presented to America and the world is what blacks receive? You know, are black people passively accepting that? Further is for the white folks, other side of the same coin, this idea of privilege, power, stature, expectation of favor in America, is that being passed along? Is that lived in America, in the minds of white folks and things like that? The mind of America is what I'm trying to get at a lot of times here. So we're scratching at those two issues. You know, those are big concerns of mine, and the foremost. And my second thought is for financial literacy, understanding how money works, why we're working so hard. You know, everybody's bearing a cross in the world as far as getting their needs met, and when you stop and take a look at it and look around, do some research, and find out why you feel like financially you're just in this quicksand. You just can't get enough. Well, yeah, the financial literacy, it may not fix the problem, but it'll help ease the mental burden. You'll find you're not crazy. You'll find that organizations long before you, and organizations present are borrowing from the future, and these bills are coming in, and it shrinks the value of the dollar the way the financial system is, the way the financial system works. So those are just some of the bare fundamentals of some very complex systems happening here in America financially. So those are my two big concerns as we go through, and we touch all those and a lot of other issues as we move through. That's just where my mind is at. I'm inspired and informed by a man named Dr. Claude Anderson. He's written 3 great works. I want you to get these works, and if you only get one book of his, get this first one. A Black History Reader, 101 Questions You Never Thought to Ask. That will get you on your way and moving along. Second book I read, Black Labor, White Wealth, Search for Power and Economic Justice. We reference those books heavily, all these books heavily, through this year-long project. And his national plan to empower Black America, Powernomics. You can find Dr. Anderson at powernomics.com, and the Heritage Institute in Washington, D.C. Behind me, you see the hashtag #US2 symbol. That's for Black women there conversing and supporting one another. There are differences of issues between men and women. Check out Black Enough, BLAGGENUF, more of a Black Facebook type experience. And if you can't find your flavor, go to here on the web, make your own, hunt around. Trust me, somebody is speaking on your voice, and if you can't find your flavor, start your own. And finally, Uncle Tom's Cabin. We're going to start a three-part series today. Harriet Beecher Stowe's phenomenal work, and today we're going to go a little slower through the text to get an idea of this material, how it informs, and so on. So let's get to it. We're in chapter 14. It's a chapter titled Evangeline. I have this annotated book, and in the margin there it says Evangeline means it's got the root evangelist in there, but it's one who brings redemption. As we move on, I've read the book. Hopefully you'll read the book, but we'll see what that means, how that plays out as we move along. Tom is heading down the Mississippi on a boat, barge, water vehicle, and he's heartbroken. He's going through a lot of changes, of course. And this is, I'm glad Miss Stowe does that because, the slave isn't just, no, she's writing this in the mid 1800s, and a lot of the prevailing thought to kind of calm the consciousness of white people is that the black folks are just a kind of a lesser animal that happens to be bipedal and can do complex labor, right? A lot of white folks believe that, it's just an animal that is near human with that black skin and all that. And so they treat him as such. So, separation from families. Remember Tom's story, there's he's actually fortunate. He gets a little bit of heads up because Eliza's running away, and Eliza comes in and tells him before she leaves. So he gets a little bit of heads up. Had she not come, he would have just got tapped on the shoulder, whether he's in the field, in bed, making love, time to go, and he's got to go. So that's kind of what Tom has gone through. He's gotten a little bit of heads up, but most slaves, it ain't like, okay, you're scheduled to be sold, and it's not a complicated procedure with moving slaves about. They are property, tools, farm equipment, and whatnot, and they go when it's time to go, when they say it's time to go. So he's heading down the Mississippi River, his barge is laden with bales of cotton, and you picture this, the cotton industry is booming, and so it's not like, my picture is not like a nice little, like a big boat with a deep hold where they put cotton. But she says there's bales in the book. She kind of indicates there's bales of cotton in, the deck. It's crowded, people trying to get places and stuff like that, even to the point where I imagine there are bales of cotton lashed to the side of this boat, almost like giant bumpers of crops being moved up and down on this bar, just cotton overflowing. And this economic system it's what's driving a whole lot of other features of economics in America, the slave handlers, slaveholders, slave trade. You got all the farming, agricultural things going on, and then textiles and industries, processing, shipping, and all that from this cotton coming going up and down the Mississippi River. Uh, Tom is, I think we kind of understand now, hopefully, that Tom is, he's a passive, God-fearing black slave. And he lives his convictions out in the open. You know, he prevents people from talking bad about slave handlers and slave masters, and he's trusting the Word of God and the Bible and all this stuff. So it's not unusual that Tom he's eventually granted liberty by Haley, and Haley loves it because it's you know it's not a Tom is not a high maintenance slave. Haley's been burned before. We know back a chapter or two, and he's lost he's lost a couple slaves now on his journey. He's lost Eliza. He's lost the other woman that he took her baby, sold the baby, and now she's has jumped off the boat and disappeared. You know, so these things are going on in his life, but you know, Tom has gained Haley's confidence, and it's not a misplaced trust either. Tom's a good slave, a trustworthy black person, and all the things. Tom's conditioning is like, not only is his conditioning effective, but Tom, he is sold on being the best that he can be where he's at in the moment, and he values that. You know, that's the one thing we're going to find through the story that actually kind of marks and indicates Tom's freedom. He has a liberty in that because he is uh, living in a manner, in a way, he's not being compelled to be a slave. He's choosing to be that, and he's choosing to be that to the best of his ability. If you are, uh, if you're understanding the Bible, Scripture um, runs in a way where the Apostle Paul is encouraging slaves to be to exercise obedience, but if you've been taught that Paul is talking to the slaves and everyone as though they're free people, and that their freedom should be a motivation for them to perform, you know, as wives, husbands, children, slaves, and the like. That's Tom. You know, that's what Tom is about. That's how Tom is choosing to live. You know, he's a slave and he's being tossed around. I'd be kicking and screaming, you know, but it's Harriet Stowe's book. So he this character is the prototype. Um, you know, he appears to be a slave under the control of uh, white power, but he's actually doing this freely. There's a lot of liberty in Tom's life, and you know, he's really he's really impressive on that point. If you've understood um, how he's being dressed up in the text. So he's helping. He's at liberty, but you know he's not lazy. You know, slavery. You know, this little respite up and down the river, Mississippi, isn't a time to sit around and rest his bones. He's in the prime of his life, so he's actually helping out because the ship is making stops along the way. Of course, just like any big any kind of train. I used to drive trucks, and there were times I'd have to stop. There'd be a route, and along the route, I'm dropping stuff. Tom's helping out, unpaid labor, right? I'd be like, dude. So Tom's helping out, uh, unpaid. He's reading his Bible best he can. And here's the dichotomy again. It's the slaves. He's finding comfort in it, which I personally have some grasp the Bible and things like that, the Christian faith and whatnot. But at the same time, it is a tool in the hands of the powerful white people to manipulate, coerce, keep blacks passive, and it's what it's sad. It's something I go back to about literacy. When we're not literate in any area, medicine, finances, religion, whatnot, then we're at the mercy. We're wide open for all kinds of speculation and nonsense. But God, I don't think God would have us be like that. We need to be understanding. So, his as she talks about him, his Bible and stuff. I'm sure passages about slavery, passages about the afterlife are probably prominent. Were probably what were read to him most. What white children of the slave masters would read Tom the Bible, this Bible, and he'd mark it up. We'll get to that in a second. But it's sad. Through her story here, you find Tom trusting and holding in his hands a very real truth. Yet it is at the same time it is what encourages him to submit to this authority and power in such a passive way, right? Try to see the slaves' predicament there. To have a sense of God, to believe in God, believe this book is telling this individual about God. Yet you got the white folks telling you, that this is your lot in life now to work hard and toil. But see, in the back in the slavery days, the message was, we're from the white power was that us white folks are in control, and that's the lot that fell out to us. But you black folks got to work hard and stuff like that. So you would think there'd be a role reversal on in the old by and by up in heaven, but not white theology in general at the time. White theology was, we go to heaven, we be with the Lord in great heaven, and you black folks up there can be with us. It's no role reversal. White theology. It is. Now you're free to be with us. On the other side. Very, very. That's demonic, if you ask me. Tom's going over is he's heading down New Orleans. Now New Orleans has it's a city, but there are low-lying areas. The levees, there are levees. Levees are just you know that's bordering the Mississippi. They're controlling its flow and stuff. They're drying out some lowlands and all that. But anyway, it causes an elevation as they're going through. Panama Canal has the same idea with its locks and that system. As the ships go through, they actually rise up a certain level on their way um, through the Panama Canal. Uh, there are no locks on the Mississippi River, but these levees do make the ships and vehicles rise up. So Tom, there's a point here where Tom sees he can see over the land. He sees slaves working. He sees the city in the distance. He's heading south, past these plantations. He knows what they're doing in their toil out there in the fields, but he's longing for Kentucky and his family. Um, no doubt. Harriet Beecher Stowe takes a moment and talks about separation and how the slaves, the when the slave got sold or taken away, it was permanent, complete, no feedback, and all this stuff. The story, probably not much of a spoiler alert, but um, there's talk of trying to buy him back and coming after him and things like that. No, I'm sure that was at a minimum in slavery days. He is, um, the door is closed. It might as well be dead. That it's just like death. There's no communication. There's no goodbyes, anything. When my father died, it was very sudden. That was it. You don't come back and holler back and all that when you're dead. So when the slave is sold or moved or whatever, that's it. Now, if they're a distance, it makes it more impactful. Now, in Alex Haley's Roots, he does talk about a pass system in certain areas where he's given his narrative, and that's believable. If the slave is at a distance where they can do that, I'm sure the work's got to be done first, and then there are these liberties. And it wasn't. They didn't have you know build up vacation time and things like that. You know, white interests got taken care of first. What was left over um, was the energy to go run. And Alex Haley's book, he talks about a mother checking in on a sold infant. So there are ways um, for them to get around. In our text here, George is the husband of Eliza. So they visit. The plantations are close together where they can visit. But if your loved one, your love interest is like really sold, ain't much, uh, not much you want to hear about, you know. And in Tom's case, Kentucky's kind of way up north, kind of middle of the nation, and now he's down south in Louisiana, looking at New Orleans. Okay, she contrasts this idea of communication after separation with white folks. White folks go on a journey. They may see an old friend pass a message along, write a letter. The communication continues. Still alive. I'm still out here in the world. Not so for the black slave. So Tom's heartbroken. He's just trying to get into the next phase of whatever it is. He's surrendered to the surrendering. He's a surrendered black man. And so he's opening up his Bible. We revisit that again. He's got, it's been read to him, by the young white um, children of the slave masters. And he's got his own special system in there. That he, it's not so much that the slaves, there was a promotion of slaves learning to read and write, but he, apparently has a writing implement. He's marked his Bible. He's got his special scratches and marks for passages. he can stammer through some stuff. So he busies himself with that, much like I do when I'm uh, on a trip or isolated. I like to read. Just give me something to read uh, to pass the time and whatnot. So there you go. That's the flavor of this trip, this journey here in the first part of this chapter 14. We'll see what goes on tomorrow in Tom's life. We're just going to take a few days and talk about this trip. We can look at it. Also, I want you to remember, think about how this book, I believe, informs literature, art, people. I've talked about it a little bit before, but as we get into this text, you're going to see some things. Why I've been saying that I just didn't want to be a big spoiler alert on some of these issues, but we're going to find that America kind of lives out of these pages to some degree as we continue on, and we're going to see some interesting role reversals and some head fakes by America's power that we might not have thought of before. Just things I'm just going to blow off the top of my head in my little brainstorms, right? In this microcosm of my little world. Thanks for hanging in there. Come back tomorrow. Let's see. We got a couple more days to look at Tom on this trip down the Mississippi. We're going to see what happens as they are continuing on that journey. I'm Tom Nyback, and that's day 147, 365 days towards racial change. See you tomorrow.